Testing 1, 2, 3. Is this thing working? Holy cow. Gee whiz. Let's see if we've got some ears on for RJ. We'll have to turn on his audio first. Hold on. Be patient.
Yeah.
There we go. Now we got him.
Ladies and gentlemen, may I present to you the master of streaming idiots.
Yes, that's right. That's right. Okay, let me get over to the studio.
And his wannabe.
And my mentor. What are you talking about?
Yeah, something like that.
Something like that. Okay. All right, folks, we're coming up on
I don't have my
stream time
monitor
here.
in front of me right now. For some reason, it's not
Okay,
communicating correctly. So
wherever you're sitting
I'll just
right
be looking
now.
at the camera when I'm talking to you, and then I'll be looking down.
Okay, RJ.
So we got multiple camera angles to work with. We got PTZ1 to work with. Whoops, I need to make sure it's a direct cut. And then blah, 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 blah. We got PTZ2, which then will allow us to go back and forth a little bit.
Okay.
We can kind of zoom in on some gear, stuff like that.
Give me your main shot so I can
Then
get
we've
you
got
fixed
the,
up in the side-by-side.
The studio, the top one. So if anybody actually want to kind of see what the crazy mess I've got over here, that's going on there.
RJ, can you
Now I'm
hear
looking
me?
at the YouTube, and all I see is
RJ, can you hear
my
me?
name. Oh, I guess I'm seeing me. Sort of, I'm in a pause mode.
Okay, let's go back.
Are you silent at the moment? Because I can't really hear you.
Right, I can't hear. You can't hear me.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Tom.
You can't hear me. You need to turn me up. Turn me up. Is that better? Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Yeah, you need to turn me on. I can't. You can't hear me.
No, seriously.
Yeah, seriously.
What's up, Tom? Because I can't hear you.
Let's see. Turn.
Oh, wait a minute.
on your
No, I got the problem.
audio.
I know. It's that automatic mix audio thing. Sucker.
All right.
So what do you need from me? I can hear you now.
You can hear me now. All right. Very good.
Yeah.
Very good.
So
I can hear my
it's
text message coming in.
Sometimes I get that default audio in mix thing.
You
and
can
I lost
turn
you.
that off. You can turn that off. So every
I
time
know.
you put in a new
I've got it
input-
turned off before, and I just haven't done it, the general settings yet on this new system.
Okay. All right. What I need is an establishing shot from you that's going to be your regular shot for the side-by-side. So when you and I are side-by-side, what camera are you going to use and what shot are you going to use? Have you got a preset so that it'll go to the same place every time? That's a lovely shot.
Preset, unbelievable. You want a preset? You want a preset?
I want a preset.
Is this shot work for you?
Yeah. Yeah, that works.
You know what I might do? I think I'm going to move this camera closer to my laptop so that's right in front of me instead of looking down. And that way I'm not looking down and showing my scalp here. Okay.
Okay.
Give me 1 second.
All right. What we're working on, folks, is this shot right here. You know, the old standard shot, side-by-side shot. So, yeah, Otis, RJ just couldn't hear me. It was that old, you know, vMix audio mix thing that kind of kept us from being side-by-side. Yeah, I don't think he was hearing me either, Wixton, but he is now. Although sometimes, you know, talking with RJ, you just never know.
Ears on.
Eric's here. Welcome, Eric. Dean's here. Chris is here. Rich is here. Jamie's here. You guys heard the news about it. NAB, they just canceled it a little while ago. So we're all sad for
No,
that.
they didn't.
Yeah, they did.
Are you serious?
Yeah, they did.
I checked their website last night. They said, no, we're still on.
Yep. Well, I mean, that's the way everything is. Everything is until it isn't.
It is until it isn't. That's true.
It is until it isn't. Okay, so we're going to get RJ in the shot. Is that the shot you
All right,
want?
I'm going to try to set this up as my establishing shot. Let me set
Yep.
that as my default.
Yep,
Stand
that's
by.
the shot we want.
So if it goes somewhere else, I can always go right back to it. Okay,
Okay, all right.
that's my preset, and I'm sticking to it.
And you're sticking to it. Okay. So, folks, we're still in pre-show here, but we're getting ready to move over to the show. So sit tight. So let's see. Let's make sure Jamie's here. Who else did I miss? Richard is here. Rich is here. Ken's here. Herman's here. Stream Fire Live. Welcome. Glad to have you. He's from Daytona Beach. And Ken says, let's do our own get-together in Vegas. I think we need to talk about that. We need to
I
have a
thought about that.
discussion. Yeah, some of us still have tickets and still have hotel rooms. So,
Yeah.
and Chris
Uh-oh.
says there'll still be events and meetups going on. So maybe we'll do the Streaming Idiots meetup and we'll have a big party. Dave says he's already canceled his
may not be able to make
Airbnb.
it.
Yeah, I think I've got to like April 4th to cancel my Airbnb, so I'm not feeling any pressure on that. All right. So, RJ, you sit tight. Don't move from where you are. Don't move from where you are. And we're going to switch seats and switch mics. Sit tight. Be right back.
Works for me.
All right. Let's see what we got here. All my favorite news anchors talk about how they wear jeans and shorts when they do the news. So anything from mid-torso up doesn't really count. All right, let's see. Let's check our side-by-side shot here. And let me match up to my guest just a little bit. So we'll do the zoom thing here. And looks like the straw is chroma keyed out. So we'll move that out of the shot there. There we go. And let's get our ears on so we can hear RJ.
Hello.
RJ, can you hear me?
I can hear you loud and cleared.
Okay. All right. Very good. You know what? I'm going to put a noise filter on your audio. 1 second. I'll be right back. One
Am I
second.
getting too fuzzy?
RJ, if you'll amuse the crowd. I'll be right back.
If I'll so I am live. Okay. I'm having fun. I am programming my PDZs on the fly. I'll show you how I did that. Using. No, I keep hearing the audio click out every once in a while. Let's see. I do have the chat up on my laptop over here to the right, to your right, my left. Yes. RJ amuses. Thanks, Tom Willis. All right. So I have no monitor in front of me right here. So I've got to focus on either the streaming demon laptop. Well, it's not a laptop, but system. Or my laptop, which I'll be sharing my photos and maybe some videos with. And then I got a main cam, which you can't see right now because I'm in this picture-in-picture, and 3 PTZ setups. And these are the same PTZs I used for the basketball. So we shall see what. So you're saying I got an audio lag? I don't see myself lagging, but I could be. Check 1, 2.
Oh, you look fine to me.
Is your audio in sync for you?
Your audio's breaking up from
Check
time
1,
to
2,
time,
3.
RJ.
1, 2, 3. Yeah, I know. I'm getting that too. I'm getting a little bit of breakup going on.
Yep. Yeah, one of the interesting
your audio.
aspects, you lost my audio. Check 1, 2.
Temporarily, I'm looking at the YouTube, and that's 30 seconds off. I see you speaking in.
It won't work.
All right.
It won't work. Oops, wrong way. Let's see. Let's go this way. There we go. All right. So, yeah, the interesting thing about WebRTC is the quality of the call gets better the longer it's up. So if we were to go live immediately, the audio wouldn't be as good as it would be after, say, 5 minutes. Now, you're wearing a lav mic right here on the front of your shirt, which means that anything you touch in this area is going to give us the scrunchy sound. Yeah, exactly. Just a little reminder there. Okay. All right. So let's see. Dave says that the audio is behind the video. Is that just on RJ or is that on everybody?
Yeah, that's a good question. He says RJ's is a bit out of sync.
Yeah, yours is kind of wavered back and forth a little bit, and I just suspect it'll standardize in just a little bit. Yeah, Chris says that you're a little out of sync. And, one of the other interesting aspects...
Forward or backwards?
Yeah, when it gets so close, it's hard to say. But when you look at the statistics for WebRTC, it'll give you two different latencies, one for the video and one for the audio. And they aren't always the same. Sometimes they'll be 50 milliseconds or 100 milliseconds difference.
So what do you think? I'm a minute behind or a frame behind, a second behind?
Yeah, your video is a little jerky. What are you sending us? Right click the vMix.
It should be a 720.
Okay, which 720? You've got three choices. You've got 800, 1200, and 2000. Probably the default 1200. Why don't you drop back to the 720, 800 and see if that helps.
All right.
Just right click that input.
Yeah, I'm on the default.
Yep. And select the lower quality.
You had like super duper internet speed.
Yeah, could be could be a system issue too. But we're definitely seeing lags in your video. Yeah, that seems.
Oh, are you seeing lags on me or are you seeing the background? Because that's a loop.
Both.
Both.
Yeah, it'll freeze and then it'll speed up.
I'm watching the YouTube, and I'm not really kind of seeing it as much. But I'm not listening to the YouTube, so I can't hear where the delay is much.
Okay, well, let's go live, and we'll make all this work. Not to worry. So, let's have a show. Well, hello and welcome. I'm Tom Sinclair. This is Streaming Idiots. I'm delighted that you could be here with us today. Super excited about our special guest, RJ Murdoch with Emerald Coast TV. We'll have him up here in just a second. RJ, as you might remember from some of the other times he's visited this show, he is just in cutting edge of showing folks how to do especially basketball live streaming. And he opens his tool bag and shows you all his tips and tricks. It really is nice. Really is nice. And I can't wait to get him up here in just a second. But first, a little news. If you haven't already heard, you probably have, that NAB for April 18th, 19th, 20th, 21st, 22nd has been canceled, possibly postponed. They're kind of leaving the door open that it might be rescheduled at a later date. So if you've got a hotel reservation in Las Vegas, you may want to think about canceling it. Although a number of us just a few moments ago were having a little chat about, maybe we'll go have our own little meetup since we've paid for the airfare out there, since we've paid or at least put down deposits on hotels, that kind of thing. So we'll kind of unpack that and see if we can't have some replacement live streaming therapy out in Las Vegas next month. We'll get back to that one in just a minute. And I want to give a shout out and a hat tip to Paul and Tess over at PTZ Optics. I was their guest on a show earlier today talking about how you can live stream your church this weekend with gear you probably already have on hand. So if you're not already doing that and you're thinking, golly gee, 25% of the congregation's not going to be there, take a look back. It's in, I know they broadcast it on Facebook to the PTZ Optics company page. And we basically talked about some strategies of how to use whatever equipment you have on hand to get a live stream up and running for this weekend to Facebook or YouTube, so that folks don't feel so disconnected in a time when we can't always be physically present. And we'll probably be doing some more in-depth work on that in the next week or so. We're getting a lot of calls for folks about that, not just in the church world, but in the business world as well. I noticed in the Streaming Idiots Facebook group, if you're not a member of the group, we'd love to have you join. In the Streaming Idiots Facebook group, there were a number of folks that were talking about the fact that they were getting requests to do live streaming of events and other kinds of things, and that they weren't always able to keep up with it all, or it was in locations that they couldn't get to. So there's some talk about putting a consortium together, and this would be a great opportunity for us to do it for folks that are experienced live streamers, for us to lend our expertise in this time of need. And people still have to pay a fair wage for these kinds of things. They shouldn't expect that we're going to do it for free, but we do have a lot of expertise that we can bring to bear on this situation and help. I think it's going to be a temporary thing, but I also think that a lot of people will discover the value, the beauty, the power of live streaming during this time, and they'll want to continue to do it after the fact. So that's my little monologue and spiel today. I will say, this whole show, Streaming Idiots, is a giant infomercial for my company, Eastern Shore Broadcasting. At Eastern Shore Broadcasting, we design and build PCs for live streaming using vMix. We're a vMix reseller, one of their top resellers here in the U.S., possibly in the world, I don't know. We also represent PTZ Optics and Magewell and Yuan and Ada and X-Keys, our favorite X-Keys. Here's the X-Key 80. You can see what a wild setup we've got of keys. My favorite key is the banana button key down here in the bottom right-hand corner. That's my cough button. The other key right next to the cough button is the mute button for RJ. So if he gets to be going too much, we'll mute him. We ought to have a volume control for RJ. That's what we need. It's a volume control. Anyway, so with no further ado, well, let me give you a little ado. We'll do a little bit more ado before we get RJ on. One of my most popular Streaming Idiots episodes on YouTube with tens of thousands of views was a video that RJ and I did probably 2, maybe even 3 years ago on live streaming basketball and his work with a homebrew wireless camera rig. And he has since graduated onto other gear from that. But he's going to open his tool bag with us and talk with us about the basketball tournaments that he's just recently done. So let me go ahead and bring RJ into the broadcast. RJ, I got you there. Welcome. Glad to have you. Thank you. So you're here, and RJ and I go way back. Well, at least in virtual years, it's like 30 years virtually. It may only be 5 or 10 in real life. But you just finished up a big basketball tournament there in the Fort Walton Beach, Destin, Florida
Actually,
area.
at Niceville. At the Northwest Florida State College.
Just up the road.
They have a really awesome basketball arena there. And last year, they decided to go ahead and put the bid on to do the state Region 8 basketball tournament. That's the junior colleges.
Right.
And that took place just last week.
Awesome. And you guys live streamed it.
Yes, we did a live stream. We provided real-time referee playback, instant replay if they needed. They had it. We had one particular team, which seemed to happen quite often. And and then it was also just this whole year, from the November Thanksgiving weekend, Emerald Coast Classic, all the way up to here, has been a growing process trying to utilize IP-based video. And we can probably talk a lot about a lot of lessons learned. A lot of lessons still need to be figured out. And I finally graduated for this tournament because I understand that the next 2 more years, we're going to do the same thing. It was a 3-year contract. But decided to go ahead and ditch the laptops and create a screaming, streaming, deeming I call it the SSD PC.
All right.
Uh,
All right. Well, before we get into that,
I've got some of my gear with me. I've got all the equipment for the most part kind of set up in front of me in case anybody's interested, and we could talk through a couple different things. Tom, I'll let you lead.
Okay. Thank you very much. But before we get into that, tell us a little bit about your background. The big screens behind you.
I was born.
Not that
If you're talking about the
background.
big screens.
I'm talking about what is.
What we're talking about, we're actually live in my studio at this point. At this time, I've got my 30 times PTZ Gen 2 set up in the corner here so that we can kind of pan through. This is a little 20 by 13 feet wide little office space in the middle of a building, away from the highway, away from the AC unit. It's probably one of the quietest places I've ever had. But because of the space, there wasn't room for a lot of sets, so that's why I went ahead and designed the monitors that you're seeing back here. And then I set that up with my master studio PC, which is over on the other end over here. And that's basically where I work as my producer station right there. And there's a little PC right there on the bottom lower corner, left corner. I also control my audio from another little touchscreen laptop that I wouldn't call laptop, touchscreen desktop that I picked up. And I'm using an X-Air X18 Behringer mixer, which basically is I'm doing the mixing through the IP. So all of my, let's go back to my main cam here. All of my audio from the guests right back here are all being plugged into a unit down here, and just one cable running into my camera that I'm using as my audio. And then I'm just controlling the volume from over there through an IP cable. Let's see, there's lots of things going on in this studio, but I'm not sure how much this basically started because the local cable station decided they weren't going to do any more editing, for producing shows, and we had a couple of local profits, non-profits, organizational, government, and chamber shows that still wanted their presence in the local cable channel. So this basically became a three-camera talk show setup, and we just changed the background to whatever we want back on the back over here. And other than a green screen, they kind of get a feel for the environment that they're in. Sometimes I'll put the Destin Harbor back here, I'll put the beach back there, or just an image of what the show is about.
Great.
That's the studio.
That's great. And at some point, I'm sure we'd love to come back and have a longer studio tour than that. But really, we're interested in your live streaming rig there at the basketball venue. So you've got this new PC. You and I have had many conversations over the last couple of weeks about this PC you've built and put into use immediately, which I was keeping my fingers crossed for you. And you've got.
Well, it wasn't immediately. It was game 2 before I think we picked it.
Okay.
Probably even the next day.
And you've got a couple of PTZ Optics NDI HX cams that you.
Well, we should talk about the
under
PTZ
goals.
Optics and how they're setups.
Yeah.
So what's kind of really unique about that, and I don't know if you want to go full screen, and I'll try to see if I can find some pics that actually show how the setup is. When I originally set up the PTZs, here we go, we got some pictures we can use for that. Let's go full screen, and I'm gonna go laptop. All right, so where to start? All right, I was able to run some Cat5 from a in-house network that they already had in the arena. And then I was able to rig some PTZ cameras on the basket. I wasn't allowed to put any tripods on the floor because it was against the athletic rules. So I had to kind of come up with a way to try to rig the PTZ so they were on the floor and the cables were in a tripping hazard. So I came up with this little arm rig that I used. And it worked for what I wanted to do. And what I wanted to do was be able to get the foul shooter. And this is an example of one of the wall jacks that within the arena. The one in the blue, one that's highlighted in blue, is actually their internet when it's active, and the other one was inactive. So I had a few strategic places around the arena where we had that connected to a PoE switch in their comm room, and it wasn't connected to anything else except for me. So I have my own inclusive network, and I was able to pull over out of this little, you see the flap down here underneath the chair. There were some 4 jacks back over here, and I had internet coming into a router, and then going back into the switch itself. And there's an example. The blue cable was the internet. The black cable was the PTZ cameras, otherwise known as my VidNet. And that just kind of shows you an example of what it looked like on there. And this was what it was like in November. And what was okay about it is that it worked well for getting the foul shots, but I was very restricted on anything on the opposite side that's being blocked. So when we wanted to do some fan cam stuff, I was very limited in what I could do. So what I ended up doing, and let's see if I can find this script over here, was try to find a way to go ahead and put that camera in front of the post. Let's see. I'm going to try to see. So, but the problem with putting it on the front was the fact that it could get smacked by a basketball at any time. So what I ended up doing and creating was a cage, more or less. There we go. Let's pull this back up. So I took a softball face guard mask, and I cut out on that mask enough of a opening so that it still was supported. It still created some sort of protection, but I can also mount the PTZ camera in there, and the ball, it wouldn't hit the PTZ cam. And then I used let me just tell you what, I'm going to go full screen here because I actually have one with me right here. So I found these angle irons over at Home Depot in the tie-down strap area. This large one was about $10. And then these 2 smaller ones were like $1.68. And what I was able to do is I got a kind of a flat, I don't know what you want to call those things, bolts, a flush bolt nut of some sort, and flattened it out. And then I had these camera mount that I used to use on monopods, and then I kind of just screwed that in to secure these 2 straps, and then took another one of these straps, cut it a couple of places so that I can create a second strap on this side that I could go ahead and screw in. And I've got a video that I'm putting together that shows how I put this all together. And we'll probably go ahead and highlight it on Paul Richards' show on the Streaming Geek. But this thing basically then just sat, and when I go back to this picture over here, it's right in the front of the basketball support system here. And I kind of rested it at the bottom on where the cushion was. And then just using a very large zip tie on the top part, just to go ahead and make sure I had something strong to support it, the top part of it, and then gaff tape everything else so that it kind of flushed in and you couldn't really see it as much. And then kind of squeezed the PTZ camera between the post and the cage top, and then clicked it into the camera mount, and that's what it ended up looking like. And then I had the wires running from over the top. They already had a cable channel. Let's go ahead and swap out of this. They already had a cable channel for power for the scoreboard, so I was able to just go ahead and hide the cable into that and just a few duct tapes, and I eliminated a lot of excess SDI cable and Cat5 cable by utilizing this system. And I have a great example of how this was being used for showing the foul shots on the Jumbotron. I'm going to look for that for a second. Tom, if you want to jump in.
If I want to fill in some dead air while you look for that, sure. Yeah. Well, that's one of the discussions that we've had over the years is, how to protect cameras at a venue. Basketball probably being the easiest because the ball's the largest. Soccer being maybe next, although a soccer ball can be pretty forceful at high speed. I remember when we did live streaming soccer, we just put what I called sacrificial cameras behind the goals, because we knew if they got hit, once or twice, they were toast. But they weren't expensive cameras, but it was just, great to have that shot. And I watched some of your tournament last week, and watched the foul shot portion. In fact, I would fast forward.
Actually, I've got the video for that right here.
Shot. Okay.
Let me go ahead and pull that up if you want to go full screen.
And it was so much fun to see that.
Sorry about the audio. All right, so what you're seeing here is they're lining up for the foul shot. I'm going to zoom in. The camera is underneath the basket and zoom in on there, and then they're relaying that up into the Jumbotron at the same time as going out to the live stream.
Yeah, so obviously the camera that RJ is using to show this is not a broadcast camera. He's just illustrating how he shows this.
And you can see as I zoom in, you can see where the location of that cage is and how it's being used.
That's super cool. That's super cool. I really like that. The challenge, you haven't done a lot of baseball yet, but the challenge is how to do the same thing for a baseball. And then, of course, the hockey puck will be the next one. Although we put a camera in an ice skating rink.
Put a camera on a hockey puck.
We put a camera in an ice skating rink last year, and we just basically put it in what's called a DOT enclosure. So it was completely surrounded with plexiglass and was supposedly bulletproof. So we figured if it was bulletproof, it was probably puck-proof. So yeah, they can do that.
Well, and that was a thing, is like trying to find a protective measure. Now you could put a glass dome, but that's kind of expensive. And because of the curvature and aspect of it, you're dealing with some glare, with some smudges, possibilities. I picked up an acrylic dome from a security camera things that when I finally got it here, I think I picked it up for like $18. I'm like, no, this is just not going to work because it's just going to be distorted. So the best thing you could do is find a way to protect it without having to put any sort of glass or anything in front of it.
Right.
And that's where I came up with the cage concept.
I love it. I love it. Now, you did have some issues with those cameras. I know we chatted at one point during the middle of the tournament with some stuttering video because of NDI, and Rich mentioned in the chat just a second ago that using a house network could be asking for trouble. Were you able to get the network dialed in where you could get good smooth video from those cams?
All right, so let's talk about the Ndi sources that was causing the problems when I finally called you.
Okay.
So I had two NDI enabled PTZ optics. So they're around 12 megabits per second. Then I also was doing a third PTZ camera, but I was doing RTSP from that camera,
Right.
and around 6K or something like that is what I kind of set it up so that it wouldn't create a stutter. So those weren't so much the issue, but I was also dealing with trying to send from a PC and a laptop that I was using for streaming, and then I was having an issue with the scoreboard interface, so I had to pull it off the laptop to send back over to the PC. So I had multiple vMix NDI systems going, and then I was trying to do bird dog to a monitor over there by the scoreboard table, so that they can monitor it, decide when to put something up on the Jumbotron from the HDMI output, but the SDI was going directly to the Jumbotron itself. But we were having issues trying to get the Jumbotron to recognize the signal being put out by the PTZ, the Bird Dog Studio.
Right.
And so we never really did solve that. And then when I finally put a laptop into it and I got the screen up there, it was having issues as well. So finally, I could not deal with the stuttering Jumbotron issue.
Sure.
So Friday morning, and this thing started on Wednesday. Thursday, we finally got the Jumbotron going. Friday, it was kind of like I just hardwired the Jumbotron, since my new PC over here actually had 3 additional outputs that I could use from the 2070 card that you recommended that I get, and send one of those to the Jumbotron, another one to the replay, which I was also doing an Ndi source. So I eliminated all this multiple video traffic to just the 3 cameras.
Yeah.
And 1 laptop, so they could monitor what's going on in the Jumbotron, but it wasn't feeding the Jumbotron. And that took care of a lot of that issue. I've also discovered from you, as a matter of fact, that I had swapped out their switch with my switch, and I was still getting the same thing. But I also never got a chance to configure that switch, take quality of service out of there, and then make sure. And then I never you can actually assign an IP address to the switch.
Right.
So I could eliminate the router that I was working with. And so yeah, it was a bit of a struggle. It's not solved yet, but it's one of these things now that I've got the SSD. I'm planning on taking these 3 cameras on location and doing candidates forums, more games. I'm going to take it tonight to a play that's being done in and around, which is very difficult to catch actors when they've got your backs to you. So now I'm going to see how well these cameras work in a low lighting environment, which
All
I'm
right.
not expecting a lot, but they're not paying me anything. So it gives me an opportunity to play around.
Yes.
So yeah, I hope that answers your VidNet answer. The thing is, I think I also discovered when I switched to my router, or not my router, my switch,
Right.
it gave me better indications on whether I had a gigabit network or a 10/100 network.
Right.
And it turns out, like one of my top camera, one looking straight down, was only giving me 10/100. And I am sure that might have been a situation on the other side when I was trying to use my main cam the game cam on a bird dog as well. So that might have been an issue as well. So what we did with that camera, by the way, is what I had been doing for a little while, because I used to tape down every season an SDI and an XLR, because I always feed my audio into my game cam, so I have a backup of my commentators on disc, more or less,
Right.
not tape, but you know what I'm saying. And then I was using that as my input into vMix, is my camera audio. So, but last year they gave me, this is what started the whole video network, is they gave me the challenge to, you have so many cables taped down and run down there. Is there any way that you could do this? without having to put all these cables, or can we build something in-house? And then that was my my job last year at NAB, was to discover as much as I can about NDI and see what I could probably do with this system that they have in there, since they already pre-wired. So I'll be working on graduation here next month. I'm looking forward to adding some additional camera angles that we didn't have before, and we're still tweaking the system, but it's never dull.
Let's back up a couple of years, and
Okay.
because obviously this has been a very good client for you, with lots of opportunities to do lots of different things, and everybody that's watching would like to have that client. How did you get that client?
It all started with the Emerald Coast Classic 2014. They were looking for somebody local who can just provide some replay, instant replay, for their refs to work with for this Division I tournament.
And so they looked
which
in
is
the yellow
required for
pages
Division
and they
I
said
games.
replay operators, and you were in the yellow pages?
No, I'm not quite sure how he came across me.
did
The
they
college
call
might have
you?
recommended me, because I do a lot of stuff with their art center, and I film a lot of their shows. And I just do live. And I guess I was doing I started football streaming, so I guess that might have helped a little bit as well. So I'm not sure how I actually got into that, but once I did that, they saw what I did with and the college asked me if I could do their basketball conference, because every January and February, these 5 colleges are required by the contract of the conference to provide a live stream. And I was kind of, at the time, the live stream guy in the area. And it just
Stop.
kind of allowed me to build more and more.
Stop. Freeze right there. That's the key, I think, right there, is that RJ had the reputation of being the live stream guy in the area. Now, RJ, are you a member of a Chamber of Commerce?
Yes, I am. As a matter of fact, when I first started trying to transition out of the standard definition video into high def, and I really, really wanted to create a software switcher which I can use touchscreen, because I was always keying the wrong button when I was switching the wrong camera when I was using other switchers. I still do that, but still, that kind of got me started. And I volunteered when vMix was first coming out, to do the Chamber's First Friday Coffees presentations, because it always would irk me when they would just have a laptop, bring up Windows Media Player, and then we're all this the people to figure out which file it was, get the screen to work, get the. So I volunteered and said, I could make that smoother for you, and then I can add something that they didn't have before. They do a new member's introduction right about towards the end of the program. And I said, you know what? I can use an IP cam on my phone. I'll set it up with a little business card holder right there, put a little stand on there, pull it into vMix as a web browser, go full screen, crop it in, and I gave them a business card reader. So when people would come up to introduce their business for their 30 seconds, a lot of times they would say their names and how to contact, and there's just no way to, but because it was on the screen, people had time, or nowadays they just take their phone out and take a picture of what they see up on there, and that way they get the business card on their phone. And that to them was a great value. They're like, RJ, we want you to do this every first Friday coffee. Don't worry about your chamber membership. They'll take care of you.
And that was the beginning.
And that was the beginning.
That was the beginning.
And through that, and my chamber president, Mr. Ted Corcoran, he is a constant supporter and voice for business, small businesses. So every single First Friday coffee, hey, RJ Murdoch with ECI TV or Emerald Coast TV, and we want to thank him. And so my name was always out there, and I was always synonymous with the chamber from that aspect. So it has brought some business for sure. And their talk show. Because he's the one who came to me and said, hey, the cable company is not going to do the studio thing anymore. We still want to have a presence on cable. They're going to give us the time, but they don't want to produce it. What can you do for us? I'm like, well, if I can create a space that doesn't require tearing down and setting up all the time, I can make it easy and cheaper. Because they were paying nothing before. And just 2 of those shows helps pay for my little rental space for my studio here. Which gave me a place to put all my gear out of the house.
If you've just joined us, I'm talking with RJ Murdoch with Emerald Coast TV over in Fort Walton Beach, Florida, about a 2-hour drive from here. And RJ and I have had a great relationship over the years, and I've found him to be an ingenious inventor and problem solver. And he also is, as you can tell, a very gregarious individual who hasn't ever met a stranger. And those two aspects of his personality really do serve him well in this regard. So many times I talk to folks that say, you know, I love live streaming. I want to do live streaming for a profession, but they cannot pick up the phone and call somebody. They cannot get out and go press the flesh, which of course we're not allowed to do anymore, because that's what it takes in your local area. People are not gonna track you down if they don't know you exist, and it's your job to make sure they know you exist. And RJ has done a great job of doing that. Now, some of the stuff, obviously, yes, in the past he's given away, and sometimes he's been rewarded by that with the free chamber membership, for example. But a lot of times,
well, the thing about the giveaway thing,
it's just being
it's
known.
also an opportunity. It's called non-attribution.
Yep.
In other words, you get a chance to experiment and try some new things. And if it goes wrong, well, they're not going to pay you anything because you're never going to charge them anyway.
Right.
But like I said, it gives you a chance to test equipment, and that's what kind of got me started with the football, with the chamber. Right. Every time I did it, I found some way to tweak it, make it a little bit better. And then that always paid off when the real gig came along, and they're like, hey, we want to pay you. We got this panel discussion. We got 8 panelists. We need to mic each one of them and then show the presenter and the panel discussion. And I'm like, got it.
Got it. Good, great example. Great. I just wanted to break in because a lot of times people are watching this show to learn about the technical aspect of it, but they also need to get that kind of marketing concept, what I call putting yourself in the path of traffic, just being out there where people have to bump into you. They have to see the name of your organization. They have to see your work. And sooner or later, the phone will ring, or you'll get a text or an email from somebody. I mean, I just got a call yesterday from somebody that I can't name, but I'm going to sit down with their executive producer this afternoon or tomorrow and figure out how to get them live streaming the way they want to. Part of it is due to the CV, the coronavirus, but part of it is just me being out there in traffic so that when they had a need, they knew who to call, or the person that they talked to knew who to call. And I think RJ is a great example of somebody that's done that very, very effectively. Yeah, RJ, I'm talking about you. That's right. Pat on the back.
You ready? You ready for some show and tell?
Yes, let's do some show and tell. What do you got?
Let's go full screen. Let's see. Let's go ahead and set up the second camera so that we can. And we'll zoom out on this a little bit, tilt down. Actually, the front camera will probably be just fine for that. All right, remember I was showing you the cage. Well, I also had to find another way to mount a camera to a column so I can get rid of a stand there. And I took that same bar, but nothing else attached to it, the same camera mount, which makes it easy to pull the PTZs on and off. And then let me show you, let's see, on this screen over here. And then, so that's the L bracket over there, about $9.91, Home Depot. And then I found these Husky strap. And what I ended up doing for this column camera was utilize on the front of the camera this this fire alarm system speaker. We could use something to rest the angle on, and then I used that Husky strap. It was an 8-foot strap. I had a little bit extra over just to hold the top part, so that I could go ahead and mount that camera without having to have any stands or anything for people to trip onto. And it gave me the shot from the top. And I just ran that, on this, ran the cable down, and there was the little jack right down over here, with little gaff tape. So that was also something that I did specifically for this event, because I had done tripods for them before. And the tripod, I was always worried about somebody bumping into it. It was always kind of squirrely. Just let it sit for 4 days with no problems. My commentators use this because I saw it being used by one commentator I used to use for football. So I've got 3 inputs. So they're hearing themselves through the headphone jacks. They're adjusting their audio, and I'm just taking the audio out of here and sending it to my camera. But what I did this year, instead of hardwiring it, is utilize this Wi-Fi XLR transmitter. It's called a XVive. It's a Wi-Fi based transmitter. I would put the transmitter, at first I had put it right directly against here into the output slot, and it's able to handle mic or line level. It's USB charged, and it's good for a couple of hours, but it also has a USB charging port, and I would just keep it charging all the time. And then I ended up just putting so I can further it away from the switcher, the mixer itself, so I get a sight. Camera was, the transmitter was into my my XLR mic input of my camera on one of the channels, and I had the second channel as ambient. And then in vMix, I would just alternate between the mic level channel or the ambient audio, depending on whether the crowd was, or the announcer was making announcements, or bringing the ambient down if they were playing copyrighted music. But the commentators always came in crystal clear. This is $199 on page, and you might be able to find a few dollars less, but this was great.
RJ, we lost your audio there for just a second when you were describing where you got that product.
The whole thing.
Well,
I
lot
heard
of
myself.
that, but tell us again the name of that and where you got it.
It's an XVive U3. Got it at B&H. It's $199, free shipping. It's Wi-Fi based, 2.4 gigahertz. It hops the frequency and the power out, so that it would get the best reception. Plug that into the back of my commentator mixer, and then put the receiver into my camera. And I actually had a short little patch cable, so that it made it easier to bring it in and out, and also again move it away from the camera so I get a better line of sight reception. So that was a great thing to do this year. I do wireless from that camera, from my main game cam, using an XCam, which is like, not an X, an iCam. An iCam Blitz 400. I brought it with me, but it's not within my reach. But it's no different than the Hollywood or the Sin Gear. But going back to this,
one more question on
It has
that.
a built-in charge,
Yep, go ahead.
but I didn't want.
Yeah,
Has a built-in.
your audio and your video is getting
I-
a little funky here. We must have a bad path connection. What's the latency on that device from the source to the destination? Do you know?
I think it's stated as 19 milliseconds.
Wow. Wow.
So it was pretty good.
Yeah. What was the distance?
It's supposed to be less than 100 feet. It is line of sight, you know, if a body gets in between, then that's the reason why I always kind of made sure that it was kind of high and clear and that there was nobody who could stand in front of it. So we were about 60, 70 feet away
Gotcha.
with that. And I mentioned that it's got a built-in charge, so it can run for a few hours, but these games can go on forever. So I just kept a USB cable plugged into it, and then I found these little triple with USBs. I think they're $12 or $14 at Lowe's. So I'd have that on my camera and over there where my station was, so that way I wouldn't have to worry having to get a separate power supply. I just already had it built into that, so that was a nice little find. Speaking of power, this little tripler, no switch, no surge protection, just a splitter, but it takes it completely away from the outlet. It makes it much easier to put warts on and stuff like that. $1.98 at Walmart. Cool thing. Other than that, that's my cool stuff for right now. Unless, of course, you want to see the layout here.
Well, that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. Very good. Yeah, show us the layout.
As a matter of fact, I can probably bring up the video of how it was for the basketball. If I didn't close my browser on me.
Uh-oh.
Dun, dun, dun. Oh, that's weird.
So while
Of course it doesn't wanna
RJ
open
looks at that, again, if you're just joining us, welcome. Glad you're here. RJ Murdoch from Emerald Coast TV is our guest today, talking about, in this case, live streaming basketball, but I always want to press him on, you know, how he was able to be so successful. Part of it is because he's very good, but part of it is because he's a good marketer. And I mean, he may not think of himself that way, but I do, and I use him as an example whenever I can on that. RJ is the one that's likely to come up with crazy ideas of how to make things easier to set up and easier to tear down, because that's what he's doing.
Mr.
He's
Pegboard.
setting up exactly, Mr. Pegboard. So have you got some video there for us?
I do, as a matter of fact. You ready for full screen?
Yep, ready for full screen.
All right, so I will keep the audio low, but that's taking a look at this right. I had to make sure that I was monitoring my live feed, so I had a tablet on connected to a completely separate Wi-Fi that was built into the arena over here, so I can monitor that, make sure at least it didn't kick out, because I had some issues, and we could talk a little bit about using StreamSpot and scheduling and YouTube and stuff like that. But that's another topic. And right next to it is a 15.6 ultra thin touch screen that's I also purchased specifically for my streaming demon here. Yeah, because I like to have the touch screen, and it's very thin. It works out really nice. There was an issue on the very last game. These things are so sensitive. I don't know what it was. I do believe I had a ghost trying to close them.
Wow.
Because on the upper corner over here, I kept seeing touching going on. Like little, when you touch a touch screen, it shows like there's a little spotlight that shows where your touch was. and I was seeing touching and scribbles going on over there. And I finally had to remove the USB, put a USB power, USB-C power, and remove the USB because of that issue. And that finally took care of it, but that was crazy. All right, moving on a little bit. You'll see the Xbox controller, the Stream Deck, and the shuttle right next to this thing. The Xbox controller, based on what you and I, Tom, were checking out with between it and the higher end PTZ controllers, was comparable. I just had to basically make sure that I had whatever camera I wanted to position in the preview, and then I could just use that to preset it up before I swapped it over. And you're taking a look on my commentators that are right next to me on my right. They're right next to the system over here. The shuttle used a lot more for football because I could do a lot more replays because there's time for it. But overall, I ended up just setting up a little button on the Stream Deck for the 5-second, because as soon as a basket was made, wait a second or two, press the 5-second. And sometimes I had time, if they were slow moving the ball back down the court, to play that three-pointer replay. But sometimes, or most of the time, the game just goes way too fast. And what I would end up doing was to be stacking several replays during one of the timeouts, and we would put them up on the Jumbotron as well. But I did use the shuttle when we had to do some referees checking out the replay monitor, which we had set up behind the other monitor right next to me, which right now, this is the laptop version of that. Before I swept the laptop out of there and just put a straight HDMI monitor on this side for me to use for monitoring, and on the other side of that same screen for the referees to come on over and check out the replay. Yeah, there's the replay monitor right there. So that's where I had set up, so the refs would come over and check it out. And I think that's pretty much it for that shot. I'll get you back to me for right now.
Okay, we've got a question in the chat. And if you could tell us again the name of the unit that you used for the broadcasters where they had their headsets plugged in.
Sure. It's rare to find these, and I set myself a search save on eBay, so when it pops up, but it's a remote mix sports, or sport. It's a JK audio, and it's originally designed for telephone hookup, but it's a workhorse. And there is a way to interface it with a cell phone if you wanted to do that, especially if you wanted to try to bring audio from somebody off-site. And this is what a lot of commentators use when they're doing live broadcasts from a remote location into a radio station. I lucked out. Typically, I've been seeing these around $200 to $300 just for the unit itself. They were like $4.99 for the longest time. I think people are starting to kind of get rid of them. But I also got two headsets, and two Sennheiser headsets with it. And I got the whole thing for just over $200. So that helped me quite a bit.
Good deal.
And I've been waiting like a year and a half, 2 years before that finally popped up.
Okay, well, what's the last
by the way,
thing
did I show you the
us
refs
today?
The refs using the replay right there.
Okay.
That was. What was the next thing?
What's the last thing you can show us today?
The last thing.
The last thing. That's my hint that we've arrived
Well, let's
at the
look
end
at the
of
talking
show?
points.
What's the most important thing that you haven't shared with us?
Don't be a streaming idiot and try new stuff before you get a chance to test it.
Yeah. Well, we
All
already
right,
knew
so
that.
let's talk about these PTZ cameras and Rtsp versus Ndi.
Okay, great discussion. Let's have
Okay,
it.
great discussion because I have a mix between the two. I was able to pick up 2 licenses, but I got a 3rd camera. So I was taking RSTP from that one. What image quality wise, they're about the same for the most part, from what I've noticed. When I bring up vMix, many times I would have to reconnect to the RTSP feed to make sure that I've got the camera showing up in my input. But the NDI was always there if NDI was present. I did have some issues with my laptop where sometimes the NDI would just kind of disappear. And that's why I ended up just wanting to get everything all in one system, and I couldn't count on the 2-system anymore. I also noticed when Tom and I were checking out PTZ zooming and controlling, the NDI studio monitor has a ability to control the camera that it's monitoring, either via mouse, and if you click on the little controller button that's available on the screen, it's variable based on how far you pull the hole. You have to see what I'm talking about. It can also be used with the Xbox as well, and it was variable as well. So it's probably the smoothest controller capability was actually through the NDI Tools Studio Monitor. And I was very tempted to give my Jumbotron operator the ability to control the top cam so that he can find his own fan cam. And when I was trying to come out directly from my vMix laptop, I was going to give him choices that he can select what would go to the Jumbotron. But because of the issue with the stuttering and all that, and I ended up hardwiring directly into the Jumbotron, it can only take my output. But I still wanted to give him the opportunity, and I was using 2 licenses of vMix when I had the laptops next to each other. So when I added the 3rd laptop, I totally forgot about the license issue. So I ended up calling up Tom and saying, hey, listen, Tom, I need just the HD version, $60. I only need 1 input that I need to bring in, maybe 2. And he helped get me that like 5 minutes. Thanks, Tom. You're
Just
awesome.
as a qualifier,
And
RJ got the basic HD version for $60, not
right,
the HD
basic
version.
for $60. Yeah, which allows you, I think, 4 HD inputs. And if you look at the comparison chart on the vMix website, it does not allow a few things. And the one thing I did not realize it did not allow was PTZ control capability, because I was still going to try to give him the ability to choose, but that's only available on the 4K and the Pro version of it.
Right.
However, NDI Studio Monitor doesn't require any licensing at all, and you could give multiple people on a Windows or I guess an Apple as well, because either way, the ability to pick and choose camera angles that they want to see.
Right.
Just too much going on, 4 games back to back, craziness. So I never really went into giving them control of that. Plus the fact that we were hardwired into the Jumbotron that kind of nixed that. But those are some PTZ and NDI versus RTSP things that I kind of noticed from this basketball tournament.
How did the latency appear from NDI-HX to RTSP? Was it noticeable?
I didn't really see much of a latency, and with my RTSP, I also had set that up to like only 22 milliseconds or something like that. And I didn't have a huge buffer. I just relied on the fact that I had a high-speed network to work with.
Okay.
So, and it was very important, and to get that to match with the wireless transmission from the main camera, especially when I'm going from the hoops, the foul shot, and I'm switching from after he throws the ball to the main cam showing how the ball went into the basket. So there wasn't much of a delay unless I chose increased buffer with NDI. And I did that once, and it was too much of a delay, and I took it right back out again.
Uh-huh. Gotcha. Good to know. Well, RJ,
I can't think of anything.
well, I know you've got more toys there, and you'll remember them all after the show is done. But thank you for taking time out to come on today. I really appreciate it. Can you hang around a few seconds in post show?
Absolutely.
For some questions from the viewers.
And then where's the post show?
And then there's the post show. That's right. Well, I think Ron has got a question. If you've got the chat available, we'll go back.
Let me pull up that chat up.
Yeah,
there we go. RJ.
We'll close out this section right now, and let's see if I can find the right button. Yeah, there we go. So thanks so much for tuning in to this week's edition of Streaming Idiots with Tom Sinclair and RJ Murdoch. And if you're watching live, or heck, even if you're not watching live, if you're watching after the fact, we'll show you the post show. So hang around. We'll be right back. Good show. And we're back. And RJ, you're live. Hello, RJ. You're live. You're live.
Yes.
You're live. Okay. All right. Yeah, Ron Wallace is doing some basketball and he probably wants to talk with you. Have you and Ron corresponded before? Ron is in Daphne, which is near where I am.
Oh, really? Okay. No, I have not communicated with Ron.
Yeah, you guys almost met when Tim from vMix was here. Ron was invited and wasn't able to make it to one of our little soirees. I think the one that you came to. So you guys almost met. Well, I think both you guys are on the Streaming Idiots group on Facebook, and would encourage Ron would encourage you to reach out to RJ there. The discussion about contracts and things and pricing is a great subject, but probably more than we've got time for in the post show. But I did want to get you guys together. Kenny's asking, RJ, are you still using the camera operators, or?
Absolutely.
Okay.
As a matter of fact, that's highly recommended.
Talk about that.
Because I had one main cam. Basically, it was a two-man operation. My camera guy, who did the main camera, the wide shot, the game cam.
Right.
And then doing all the switching. So a lot of times the scoreboard's working. Well, that's what I forgot to show was the virtual scoreboard. The scoreboard was running, the commentators were talking, the main cam's going back and forth. No reason to switch into replay or the foul shot thing. So I would be troubleshooting. Or sometimes I'd have to even get up from my station, just go run over and check a cable connection somewhere like that. So having that being taken care of was was great. Now there was one time where I lost his connection, and then luckily I had the opposite side, that third camera, the one I had set up on the column. The reason I did that was because that was the side of the arena where all the presentations, or all the cheerleaders and all the discussions and special awards, they were all being presented in that section, and I always had the back view, the back of their head.
Right.
So when I lost his connection one time, I was able to go ahead and just take, with the PTZ controller, just kind of go back and forth and keep the game going.
Right.
With everything else going to commentators. I think I lost the commentators because their audio was coming through his camera.
Oh, wow.
That was my biggest thing. All of a sudden it went silent, but at least the scoreboard, the time clock, and the shot clock and all that were still all working. And I was just able to kind of pan and However, now suddenly I'm working a camera and I can't troubleshoot the issue. so I think one of the new positions that I'm going to start for my next seasons of sports stuff is to have a specific a person who basically monitors video and can handle some PTZ control. And this is what I wanted to bring up. So you guys who hung around for the post show, you're in luck. Never heard about this. This year I started using StreamSpot because I wanted to get a presence on Roku, and it was the most affordable turnkey solution at the time. $79 up to 100 continuous or simultaneous viewers, and it gave me a Roku app, an Amazon Fire app, and they could also schedule a YouTube and a Facebook stream all at the same time. So I was able to basically send a stream directly to it. The problem when you're not in control of your YouTube stream is that when I had lost a connection, which I lost a couple of times, it automatically just closed out YouTube. YouTube was not sitting there waiting for the feed to come back. It just, and then I had to go ahead and try to create a new YouTube live stream, find the embed code, throw it over into my my Facebook page, as well as my website. So for this tournament, I was like, I'm not doing that anymore. So I only did my stream for the Roku and Facebook app, but I did a second stream directly to YouTube, and I created my own schedule, and I turned that stream on and turned it off. So now I had 2 streams going out at the same time. This is the reason why I built the SSD, to be able to handle multiple output sources and streaming sources. So Tom, I mean, you helped me out with picking the right processor, or at least, did you say 1 GPU core per each NDI source that you're going to be dealing with. And then the 720 was an affordable, middle of the road with a lot of CUDAs to be able to handle the rendering for multiple output sources.
That was the 2070. Right?
So, yeah. Now, the day of the first game, oh, by the way, says the Director of Communications for Athletics, could you send a stream to our Twitter studio accounts on an RTMP stream? Because I didn't know this, but apparently there's a thing called Live Cut in Twitter that you can RTMP into it, and then it records, and anytime during or after, somebody can go in and scrub and pick a few seconds and then tweet it out. And I got that working by the middle of that first day. So now I had 3 streams going out, but they loved it. So that, I never knew that existed. So again, I'm thinking about that third position, and that guy doesn't necessarily have to be on location.
Right.
So, there's a possibility that there's another elance job out there for somebody who doesn't want to travel, wants to work from home, could be the stream monitoring and the tweeter.
That's right. Holy cow.
So yeah, check it out. It's called Live Cut, part of Producer Studio within Twitter.
Live Cut.
How did we get on that
Producer
topic?
Studio in Twitter. Well, you are just a font of all of these wonderful pieces of knowledge that the rest of us just don't have. And you're so bold.
'Cause I dive into it,
You dive into
and
it.
then I
That's
start
right.
figuring out how to swim out of it.
And you don't mind. Are you afraid of making a mistake?
I'm afraid of not being able to solve an issue, because issues happen all the time.
Right.
And technology, it worked yesterday, and then somebody messes with a Jumbotron for some other event, and we were out for half the season. I couldn't figure that out until 2 days into it. Oh, they changed the resolution. No wonder it wasn't reading my 720 59.94p, which is supposed to be what it handles. And the athletic director, that first game is like, "You get the Jumbotron working?" I'm like, "No." "Okay, how about the replay going?" "Yep." "No." "Okay, you got the Twitter thing going for us." I had to deal with setting up the system, using the backup system, because the streaming PC wasn't ready yet. I was still pulling the plastic off the front when I brought it into the arena that morning.
Yep. Oops, sorry. Wrong button. Yep, I get that. Well, look, RJ, you've been a prince to
Any other good
hanging out
questions?
with us today. It looks like everybody's about questioned out, but Ron did say that he had sent you a Facebook message with his cell number, so maybe you guys can chat. If you guys have got questions for RJ, you can get him probably through the Streaming Idiots group on Facebook. It'd be a good place. And a lot of times, if you've got a question, I bet there are a bunch of other folks that have the same question. So we can have some good discussions about how to solve some of these problems, or how to create some of these problems so that we can go solve them right there out in the open where everybody can. And Dave said that you guys should talk too. I think Dave wants to make this
still need to figure out the
available too.
AJA IO 4K issue that I'm still having with this PC. I haven't had a chance yet to even sit down and start troubleshooting. But going back to that last game, the last few minutes,
Yeah,
and my touchscreen. So I told you kind of the story.
right.
There's only a few possible explanations of what happened there. And at first I thought maybe, did I have TeamViewer loaded in here? Was somebody trying to mess with me, trying to close me? But it didn't quite make sense, because it kept hovering around that one corner all the time. And if it was somebody who was actually messing with me, who was actually mirroring, they would have been able to select anything they want to, control my mouse. So, and it definitely wasn't that. And the other aspect was the sensitivity of the screen. I highly suspect that one area in the arena at that particular time and space was possessed. and our electronics have become so sensitive that they can actually start picking up. Remember the movie Ghost?
Sure.
When he tried to push the penny?
Yeah.
I think our touchscreens are getting that sensitive.
You don't think it was
So
a laser from
these
somebody
random butt
behind
calls? Maybe somebody trying to make a call.
Gotcha. Well,
Cameras first came out?
We'll have to start a whole new show on that subject.
Ghost busting.
Paranormal streaming. Yeah.
Yeah.
There we go.
I thought about that, because if it really was the case, we could just put a Ouija board on the screen and see what happens. But then I thought, well, why Ouija board? Why not just keyboard? Let them type it out.
There you
I'm
go.
sure they were not.
They're probably up for the challenge. Well, let's close out this great edition of Streaming Idiots. RJ, again, many thanks for hanging out with us today. If you can hold on for just another second, I want to
And
talk
thank
with
you, Tom.
afterwards. But we're going to let this
You're
show
awesome.
go on out to go on out. We're going to let this show close out. Just a reminder, if you haven't already heard, that NAB has been canceled or postponed, at least canceled, possibly postponed. There have been many folks that have talked about trying to do a meetup of some kind in Las Vegas anyway, since they might be going there anyway. So we'll have some discussions about that, and we'll have more news on that next week. So I look forward to seeing all you guys back here next week on Streaming Idiots. Thanks for hanging out, and we're going to give you this little view right here until we can to get an official closeout, and you can see what my studio really looks like. We'll catch you guys next week.
All right. I'm assuming we're off.